been really loving sort of coming back into this little corner more and more recently. Might be because I've just had a bit of a break from work, and so I've been allowed to sort of have some more time listening to you guys and your thoughts and how everything's coming around, and wanted to come back in and share some stuff that I've been coming through on my journey, on my way. So some of this stuff is just kind of punctuated around with some of the poems that I've written in and around Christianity and orthodoxy and things that I've found. So I'll just start with a poem I wrote to my best friend. A poem I wrote with my best friend in mind when I got baptized. He's not a Christian, but an incredibly deep human, and I really love him. And I wanted to try to show that this was me. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a brainwashing. It wasn't a body swapping. This is. I'll read it and maybe I'll talk about it a little bit more after. Love, this isn't a death, but a going. Please, not leaving a friend, but a knowing. Listen, it's so hard, but once seen, it is the only home for the gathering and sorting, remembering, retethering, relating, surrendering. Each joy becomes a star. Each truth shines twice as hard. Each pain, each wrong committed, buried deeper in the heart. Pain is only from things close to us. Consumes our whole being in grief. A secret weight we always bear. All of our time is awash in the world. There isn't a scene that isn't a sea rolling over itself. Christ is so hard to see. Like the sound of a finger on a glass, he resonates, he penetrates so deep as though he is everywhere. Like the note coming out from the glass. What's so hard to see for us is where the sound comes from. There is an origin. Despite how the world makes his name ring in your ears, there is a source. He is holding open a door to a world first met, alive and open, wings just behind you, witnessing, inviting an eternal weave, a loving hand stretching out, opening and opening and opening, an immortal invitation to go back to the world of fear and awe, to go back to where there be dragons, to listen to a world that is dance and song, to be heard when you speak back. A light against the darkness. Prepare for the hour, clothed to go into the water, to fulfill the dream of a warrior, and drop the sword at the feet of the Lord. Love. It takes so much more strength than you could ever imagine to be gentle, triumphant, the horns that sound, the song I have heard. I have heard. I have heard the word. All I am drops to my knees, full of gratitude for every second of my being. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. And yeah, that's what it feels like. Like, there's a paranoia, I think, or superstition, where once you explain something, then you're gone, you're never going to see it like that again. But I'm starting to realize that's the point. But that's what liturgy feels like. I think that's what liturgy is, not maybe, yes, the divine liturgy, but I can see it in the yearning for the sacred in every heart, and I can see it in how everyone takes it. There is a transformation. No, there's a revelation that's exposed to you. When I walked into the divine liturgy, I always have this experience. Sometimes I've had it in greater intensity, sometimes less, but it is always this sensation of I have been guided here with great care and with great specificity. It is obviously the place where I must have ended up because of the love that has carried me. Um, there's a feeling that I feel all of the things that inspired me and nurtured me, all of my friends, my parents, my passions in poetry and performance, and my Buddhist experience, my meditative learning, my martial arts sensibility. It's all going, look, it's all like cupping something very bright and very sacred, and that part is me, and it's incredibly tiny. It's very little of me is what you could see me, because I always can link it to poetry or something else that exists outside of me. And during the liturgy, it exposes everything for what it truly is inside me, and lays it in front of the cross before Christ. And it's that's that's everything. That's as much as it is carried before it, and then I'm filled by Him. There is no other explanation for it, and that doesn't need to translate to anybody else, but it's something that's very true, something that's very real, that I found coming into Orthodoxy, into Christianity, period, as well. Like, Paul van der Clay and Jonathan Peugeot, the reason that I not just became a Christian, that's a bit deeper, but the reason I went to church is because they had a podcast where they literally were like, get out, go outside, do the thing in the real world. You can't just do this on the internet. You can't just think about these things. And that was a profound revelation, that I was like, oh yeah, I have to live this. And it keeps hitting deeper and deeper, the idea of what this self-transformation is, or self-revelation. It's like this metanoia, atonement. There is something that is so alien to the self, so anti-self-preservation, so anti-passion, so anti-excitement, that is like, it's really jarring, and I struggle with it, genuinely struggle with it. But then at the same time, there is a genuine recognition and acknowledgement of everything that I have ever loved in my entire life being fulfilled in these moments, being fulfilled in this place. And I get that's sort of what is meant when I believe in the fullness of the revelation. I'm gonna jump this to the metagelical conversation. Paul, it's a terrible word. It's an awful word. And maybe it's awful because it's describing something awful. The idea of like this coming through the internet, and the way in which our personas are pushed through. But I talked about this with Luke, 2-3 years ago, and I think effectively we're being bombarded with so much story, so much construct, so much, so many different narratives and agendas of right wing, left wing, Republican, Orthodox, Catholic, and kept pushing against so many things. It kept turning into such a wave where all you have left at the end of it is the truth. You don't have anything else to stand on unless you are standing on the rock. So I think there's something incredible about this experience that is more, that speaks to a truth deeper than some of the waves in which Christianity has come into the world in history, in previous worlds, because it's coming out as chaotic. It's coming out as chaotic. It's not just people arriving to these things. I have a friend who became a Muslim, and in her I actually saw the same kind of wonderful amazement that I found in Christianity. And I was just like, okay, so this is something that's not just me. This is something that's happening through me. This is something that's happening with me. There's a concordance, and I count my lucky stars. I am where I am, and she seems happy and in love and in a good family, and so I pray for her and I wish her the best as much as I can. It's interesting because then I have run into this problem where because there's this thing running through me, there's this passion coming into me. I don't know if I am that passion, or it's not me, or is it me? Like, that sense of identity is problematic. And I've noticed that those are the moments when I become dogmatic to friends that aren't Christian, or I become a little bit confrontational, or dialectic, or contrarian, because I'm trying to think out and separate where the self versus the wave, where me versus the wave is. And I think that's a dance. I don't think that I think that's okay. Let's see if I can find this poem that runs into it. And yeah, learning to separate that type of stuff is actually really hard, and I think that's my favorite thing that universalism does. Is it means I can just take the brakes off of identity for a moment, and just for a brief period of time just be like, okay, I am here because I've been put here, and this is where I am. I put forward a sort of a question to Luke in regarding universalism, and effectively I think universalism has there's a sense that there's a problem in which the whole center of Christianity to me is that I am effectively giving everything to something that is not me. And universalism takes it back to some degree, because it shows me that I'm still scared of not being able to see something I can recognize in the world. It's like there's a little sola scriptura-ness where I'm deciding this is good, I'm deciding that is bad, I'm deciding this is good, and this, that, and the other, and I'm not just going, okay, I have accepted something that has been given to me because I have given everything up. And I don't think that, I think that's the same thing as the identity. I don't think it's meant to be clear cut and dry. I don't think that would work out, or if it did, I would be a saint, or I wouldn't be a Christian to begin with. But there's a semblance, there's like, my favorite thing about universalism is it treats everything with a courage that I truly recognize, where you are allowed to be present in yourself, and you don't need to fight for anything to match your own vision. Even though I just said there's this sense that it's a forcing my own vision upon the world. Um, there's there's a real courage that I see where we're really trying to bring out the heart in everyone, not like the lovey part, not the Christ part, because I feel like at the end of the day, like he is more real than we are ever going to be. And so we're just trying to find as much truth as we can. I see a saint every day I leave for work. Some afternoons, most weekends, I drive a back road into the hills, an overgrown, aged paradox, currently building, recently breaking, raining and blowing over streams, forests, stones, homes. The saints are new to me, these men as stars, these arrows to the Theanthropos. I admired the way the cosmos flowed through people, writers and fighters, rebels and kings. And now I see these kintsugi men. They allowed their brokenness, their usness, their meanness to be filled with gold. The saint is not recognized, and all I know of him is that he walks where I drive, where the world is run by lights and wheels. He is on his 2 feet, walking down a hill. When I see him, no time has passed. He walks above the secular. He walks burdened and beaming. He walks a world that has forgotten him. He walks next to a world that runs to seek the vanishing. He walks alone and silent, and waves to every light that passes. That was a guy, literally, I would see in like a 15-kilometer stretch of winding hill road with no footpath and barely any railing. He would just be walking backpack down and wave to every single car that was going down, like, I don't know, 50 miles an hour. It was cool to see. Well, obviously, I don't know the man from a bar of soap. You didn't need to. You couldn't have. Probably isn't a saint. But what I saw in him, in that moment, in that way, in that relationship, was saint-like in my small perspective of what I can see it as. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's interesting to see this world as to take on a lot of doctrine and a lot of book. It's one thing that I'll say, like, I love being Christian, and I love how it's opened the world to me. The Bible has not changed. It has still been a very hard, dry text, and I've needed a crowbar to pry out. Aside from some passages in Isaiah, I've kind of just accepted that it will come to me the more I stare at it, and eventually I will see. But it's hard, and there's a lot to it, and there's a lot to wrestle with it, and I think wrestling with it is the point. But I love that idea of preserving hospitality, conserving hospitality, the radical nature and the conservative nature. Those are the answering of a deep truth in the world that we all want and we're all looking forward. And I think that deep truth is we are in this together and we are here. That means a lot more than you could ever say in those two in that sentence itself. In Tolkien's Mythopoeia, he says each remote is except as kin from one, and that's the best argument I've ever had for God's existence. It's the only one I really need. There is a relationship that everything has with everything else. It's important, it matters, and it's necessary. And it doesn't come from either, but a combination between the two, and the combination between all things is God. Or something that points towards God at the very least. But there's a lot rolling around in it. There's a lot coming through. It's interesting to watch the internet. It's interesting to watch how things are different, but at the same time, still the same. And don't know how much I'll be able to put into it, but I mean, when I have an icon corner as good as this, I got to use it somehow. Anyway, that'll be enough for now. It's a little bit lonely up here. I'm going to see if I can find a time to talk to people on the other end of the planet, because I do think you guys are speaking some incredible things. At the very least, you're creating a great conversation, and that's significant. But if not, I'll try to listen to some videos and respond. But I wanted to put some poetry up, and I wanted to talk a little bit. I know most people would just carry on, but this little corner will stay if they have the time and inclination. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate everything you guys are doing and have done.